everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade and I'm a mindset coach and personal trainer specializing in HA recovery and female specific training. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to Rachael, who has gone through her own HA recovery experience, and she's here to share with us all the ins and outs of how she got it done. Welcome, Rachael.
Hey.
Oh, I'm excited to have you on because you started off as a listener, which is always really exciting. So you started there and here you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels a bit strange to be on the other side of the of the microphone instead of listening. Yeah.
No doubt your story will be inspiring just as you're inspired as a listener. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty. HA recovery. What caused your HA in the first place? What was your training and nutrition like at the time?
It was pretty intense. So I loved my high intensity exercise. I was a group fitness junkie. I would be going to Les Mills high intensity fitness classes probably most days of the week. I really struggled to not exercise. I felt really guilty if I wasn't doing something, and if I hadn't got a really big sweat on, I was didn't really feel like I'd worked out hard enough. I did strength training, but it wasn't heavy. It was all about trying to get a big sweat on and get a feeling like I'd really worked hard. Nutrition wise, I've always been a pretty good eater. Like I've always had breakfast, lunch, dinner. But I think my main thing there was that I just didn't eat enough for the amount of and the intensity of exercise that I was doing. In hindsight, didn't really realize that at the time, but then things kind of went pear-shaped when I came off the contraceptive pill and realized that my period didn't return.
So you were getting a withdrawal bleed when you're on the pill?
I had been getting a withdrawal bleed, but then I took the pill continuously for a period of time there, and I did stop having my withdrawal bleeds altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, and then even when I did take the like have a break between the cycles, I didn't get a withdrawal bleed. So I think they even went missing as well.
Yeah. So things had kicked in before. Did you have any idea that HA existed, that a missing period was something women could experience?
Yes, I knew it existed. I didn't really know that it was called HA and that's what it was all about. But I certainly knew that, elite athletes would often lose their cycle and the period would go missing, but I didn't really know a lot about it, nor did I feel like I had it myself at the time. Like I didn't realize that anything was wrong until my period didn't show up. I was feeling fine. I was feeling fit, healthy, all of those things. I felt really great in myself, but clearly my body was saying otherwise.
And when your period didn't show up after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, were you concerned straight away, or did you have, I've just come off the pill, I give my body a bit of time? At what point did you kind of go, oh, hold on, something's up?
Yeah, probably between that 3 to 6 month time frame. I was like, I'm pretty confident that my cycle should be back by now if everything was okay. I did reach out to doctors at around that time frame, and I was like, look, I'm not sure that this is okay. They tried to kind of say, oh, look, it can take people like up to a year to get their cycle back. And I was not really happy with that answer, and I wanted some investigations done. So that's kind of where it all started from. Yeah.
A year is a long time to transfer, because there definitely is a bit of wiggle room on the perhaps 3 months, but a year's a very long time to allocate to trying to have it come back alone without any kind of intervention.
Yeah.
What motivated you to recover?
I think ultimately it was knowing the health implications of not having a period and how many systems of your body can be affected when you don't have a cycle. Like it's just so unhealthy not to have your cycle. It's a part of being a woman, and it's important for so many different things in your body that that was probably one of the key drivers. I just wanted to be healthy, even though I thought I was really being healthy at the time. Secondly, certainly the ability to have children. I think that's was a pretty key driver. It wasn't my top driver, but it was really important for me to have that ability. And I think the third thing was just actually feeling like a real woman, like having your cycle is it's such a womanly thing. And it kind of, when you don't, you almost feel like you're not quite a real woman when you don't have your normal cycle happening. It's yeah, it felt different. Yeah.
Was there ever a time where you kind of embodied I'm an athlete, so I don't get my period as almost like a trophy, or very much as soon as
Nah.
you realized it wasn't coming, you were
Yeah.
like, oh, this ain't right. This doesn't sit well with me and
Yeah.
being a healthy person.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I never had that mindset. I never celebrated the fact that I didn't have my period. It was pretty, it was something not to be proud of. And it really made me, that was, that missing my period was what made me look at the way that I was exercising and the way that I was eating, and compared to all of my friends, I was the fit girl. I was the girl who would go away for a weekend with the girls, and I'd be the one going out for a run. And I thought that was, I loved it. Like, I love exercise. I still do. And I didn't think I had any other intentions other than I just liked being healthy. But I was obviously taking it to the extreme, and my body wasn't appreciating it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that you stayed true to that though, because once you had that information come in that your period wasn't coming, you still complied with that health comes first. Because at the time you had no reason to believe you weren't healthy. You're on the
Mm,
pill and you were intentionally skipping and things like that.
mm,
So going off, I guess, body markers and how you actually felt really
mm.
great, you had no reason to suspect that you weren't anything but healthy.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I know there's a lot of other signs and symptoms that women get when they've got HA, but I really didn't have any of them. I slept well. I did have some things, like I did definitely have to go to the toilet at least every night. I'd wake up and need to go to the toilet. I would struggle with getting like really cold feet. What was some of the other things? Yeah, there was definitely a few things, but at the time, like, they to me didn't stand out as being
They weren't
like,
red flags. Yeah.
nah, they weren't red flags. Yeah, they weren't. I guess I thought that was just how I was. I thought that was just normal in a way.
I think with cold hands and feet too, because that's really common.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with Raynaud's. My
Mm,
hands and feet were so cold, but because my mum had Raynaud's, I kind of just went, oh, it's genetic, it's then passed down.
mm,
And
mm.
then in hindsight, it wasn't a priority for me to recover from Raynaud's. So, when I got my period back, it just turned out that I went through winter. I was like, wow, this has been a pleasant winter. I can actually feel my fingertips all
Yes.
through June, July, August. How lovely is this?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but because it's quite common for females with that vasodilation, it's an easy one to dismiss. It's like, oh,
Mm,
well, we just get a bit colder.
mm.
When you decided to recover, my health is a priority. I want the option to have children. What was the biggest, I guess, obstacle to making the changes that you needed to?
Um, the biggest obstacle or the hardest thing that I found?
Both.
Both. Um, I'm going to say the hardest thing was, it had to be the weight gain.
Mm.
That was tough, like going from being really slim and feeling so confident in my body to quite quickly having to putting on weight because I was exercising less and eating more was really tough, because then your clothes don't fit you, and then you've got to go and buy a whole lot of new clothes. And I found that really, really hard. But it's all kind of tied together, because I, I found it really hard reducing the amount of exercise that I really loved doing. Like, I loved the high intensity stuff. I loved getting a sweat on, and kind of having to really pull back on that. Not completely stopping, but like really pulling back it was like a complete change to my lifestyle that
Mm.
I'd been so familiar with for like over 10 years, that it was just a complete U-turn on the way that I was living my life.
Mhm.
So yeah, I found that really hard, and the lack of confidence in my body that I used to have in spades, I really struggled with. What else did I find really hard? I found it really hard. You're constantly thinking about recovery and whether
Mm.
you're constantly having to make decisions with every little thing you do throughout the day, thinking, am I doing too much? Should I be doing this? Should I be eating more? Like there was just these constant thoughts about your recovery, and I couldn't really switch off from it. I found that that quite a challenge. What were the other things that were challenging? Not knowing whether you were going in the right direction, like feeling like you were making all of these huge changes to the way you were eating and your lifestyle and your exercise, yet not knowing really whether you're getting any closer to getting your period. I found that really challenging. Yeah, so it was hard. It was so hard. I also had my wedding coming up. Leading into, during all of this time, which was another really big obstacle, given I had a wedding dress that I needed to still fit into that I'd paid thousands of dollars for, and wanted to still feel really beautiful and look good on my wedding day. And that was really hard because I still was just wanting to get my period back. So I wasn't willing to sacrifice, um, my recovery for just the sake of trying to fit into this dress. So it was quite a challenging time
I
to do
must
all of
admit,
this.
I so applaud you. I remember hearing that back when your wedding was approaching
Mm,
and thinking you are so strong
mm,
because it's not the path most follow. Like
mm,
it tends to be, the wedding will be the last hurrah. And then I'll focus on getting my period back, or the birthday will be my last hurrah, or this or the that. And
mm.
I have to say, I applaud you so much because you stuck to your guns with the wedding. And I don't know, I guess the biggest question, because I'm sure others are itching, are you glad you made that choice?
I'm so stoked I made that choice. And I look on my photos, they're actually sitting right next to me. And
Hey.
I felt so gorgeous on my wedding day. I had like I look so much healthier. Like I feel like I look so much better in my wedding dress as I did than I would have if I was still my former self. Um, so yeah, and I'm really pleased I did it. I just I'm a really determined person, and when I make my mind up about doing something, I don't like to change that. So once I made my mind up that I was going to recover my period, it was happening. It didn't matter about the wedding. And yeah, it was hard, but I chose a dress that looked fantastic on me. And the seamstress, they just can do some incredible stuff. But
Mm.
I wouldn't have had it any other way. And I got my period maybe a month or two before, actually it was about 2 or 3 months before the wedding. So that was also a challenge, knowing that I had my period back, but I had this little window where I could have just gone a bit crazy and
Mm. But you stuck to your guns.
started exercising a little more than I should have. And I might have dabbled a little bit, but I still was very sensible about what I did, and yeah, felt great on my wedding day, and I had my period. So it was fantastic.
That's awesome. And I love how you said, you're a determined person. Because I know it's one thing that got me through the HA recovery was I remember thinking to myself, I got myself into this mess, I can get myself out. Because it's the strong mindset that causes it, right? All the
100%.
behaviors, all the choices that you make that just
Mm-hmm.
you keep layering on one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing, and you just lock yourself into this way of living. But we do choose it, right? And I was much like you as well. I enjoyed the whole thing. I enjoyed
Mm,
eating the way I ate and training the way I trained. Um, but I did find it quite motivating to trust that I had a strong mind.
mm,
I just need to use it for me instead of using it against me. And
mm.
it sounds like you took on the same strategy. It's like, I get things done. And
Yeah,
this is just another thing on my list. And it's hard, but I've done hard before. I can do it again.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think us type A personalities are
But
all
we can
very
make it
similar.
work for us. We just need to tweak it, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
all it is. It's
yeah,
just the tweaks.
yeah,
Tell us more about your training. So you added a little bit of training in just before the wedding. Your
yeah.
period still showed up. What type of training were you doing? How often?
Yeah, so what was I doing back at that stage? I think I was during recovery, I was still going to the gym, so I didn't ever completely stop exercise. I totally stopped cardio, like doing cardio and high intensity, but I was still doing some really lightweight training. When my period returned, I think I may have increased to doing like 4 days at the gym. I did start to increase the loads that I was lifting. And I think I brought in um, some steady state cardio, some like slower paced, but for, maybe like 20 minutes or max 30 minutes, just really steady state cardio at that point in time. So there was still no high intensity initially. I still kept it really low key. Because I guess I was still really cautious that it was really early days, and I'd heard countless podcasts and things about, women that had jumped in too quickly to doing all of that high intensity stuff again, and next minute your period's gone again. And I was very determined not to go down that pathway again. I don't think I could have done the whole thing again.
Once is enough.
Yeah, once was enough. I just couldn't go down that pathway again. And don't get me wrong, like I'm absolutely still love training. I love the high intensity stuff, but I guess your desire to train as hard as you used to changes, because you realize that you don't actually need to thrash your body 100% every single day to actually make gains and to make progress and get stronger and still have a great body composition and make all these changes. You don't actually have to be training all the time at max intensity. And I guess, that's what a huge learning of mine since we've been working together following a training program is, I can still get these awesome gains. I'm stronger than ever before, and I'm doing less than I used to.
And thanks so much for sharing that, because I think that's the biggest fear that arises with the change of training, is that women actually fear not being able to go back to the person they were, not being able to do endless hours of cardio or HIIT sessions or even strength training. Like, I want to be the person who does 3 hours a day. But when you get to the other side of it, you actually don't want it anymore, because you've seen another side that you previously weren't open to. Because we can be a bit blindsided to know that's the only way, that's the only process, it must be this. And then all of a sudden we give ourselves some space to learn other methods and start to see a result in another form. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if I can get results in 1 hour instead of 3, I love training, but I'll take the one. We've got busy lives, we've got things to do, we've got social events and families and careers. Having the best of both worlds sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, there's no doubt the intention for the training changes. Like, I would have loved to say back then that I trained because I just loved feeling fit and strong and healthy. Yet there was no doubt that my size was a motivator. 100%. 100%. And the way my body looked was a huge motivation for the amount that I trained and the type of training that I did. And it's not to say I've just like let myself go and now that's why I don't care about, pushing my body like I used to. It's just the intentions are different. But the learning that's come from realizing I don't have to do all of that sort of stuff to get progress and make some really huge changes, then why wouldn't my training change?
Absolutely. Do you want to shine a little bit of light on how training's changed? As you mentioned, we're working together at the moment. You're a part of the 12-week case study, which is amazing. If you have been paying attention to my Instagram stories, anyone listening, and you've seen this superstar woman who can now do unassisted pull-ups, this is the superstar woman I'm chatting to right now. Pull-ups are the best, and if I feel like that's one of my goals as a trainer, is to have everyone doing unassisted chin-ups or pull-ups, whichever you want to call it, because they're just fun and they're great, and everyone feels good when they can do them.
Yes.
But before I get too excited about your chin-ups, do you want to share some info as to what your experience has been with cycle syncing your training, following a program, and I guess just that change of pace from going from all the high intensity stuff to a slow, strong focus?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had never followed a formal training program before. I'd always, as I said, done all these classes and just done my own training. I'm a physiotherapist by day, so like I know how to train and I know how to move my body, but I'd never followed a formal training program. So we started together on a 12-week program, and I think we started off with maybe 4 days where there was like a push day, a pull day, a legs day, and a little bit of cardio. But it was just really cool having maybe say we were kind of working in like 4-week-ish blocks, whereby that largely the exercises would stay relatively similar for that first 4 weeks. I was doing the same movements every week and tracking what weights I was doing as per any program, and making progress each week on how much I could, load and challenge myself. However, in that, week, or generally speaking, just that week prior to my period arriving, we'd just play around with the numbers a little bit, decrease a little bit, slightly deload, or just decrease the sets and repetitions just because of the inflammation and things that's already going on in the body. And that felt like really nice and appropriate to do that at that time, because I sometimes would feel not quite as strong in that week prior anyway. So it was really nice to notice that change in my strength and ability during that week leading up to the period, because I never ever would have felt that before. Yeah, so it was really cool training with my cycle in mind, and knowing that with doing that, my cycle lengths decreased. When I first got my period back, I had some pretty all over the show cycle lengths. There was some really long ones, there was some relatively short ones. It was very sporadic, and but largely they were kind of on the longer end of things, and kind of in the 40s, early 40s. And yeah, like within that first month of training, I think I had like a 30 something day cycle. It might have been 32 days or something like that. Like it just dropped straight back. There was also a wedding that was done and dusted, which might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, I
But
remember you saying, you're like, I'm a bit less stressed. The wedding's done.
yeah, don't know if that had something to do with it. But anyway, yeah, it was nice to see those cycle lengths decrease and just become a lot more predictable, and a lot more within a pretty certain time frame. And yeah, I think that's due to the cycle syncing and making sure I'm not just pushing it 100% the whole way through the month. Like you're having a little bit of ebb and flow as to how hard you're pushing yourself and in what weeks you're doing that. And it kind of works to your advantage, because in those first few weeks of your cycle, you are like physically more able to push heavier loads, and you feel like that too. So yeah, it's really cool seeing the progress. And I am no doubt tenfold stronger than I've ever been. I've never been able to do a pull-up. So now I can. And yeah, like I'm pushing heavier loads than I ever could. And I think a big thing post HA recovery, you're kind of thinking, oh my gosh, when can I start losing weight, or when's my body going to start changing? It honestly, just my body shape has changed significantly from when I was in recovery. And it kind of just happened without even trying, in a way. It was kind of weird. Yeah. Yeah. Like,
So it happens when you trust the process.
yeah. Like it just kind of happened. Like, obviously I start, and like my exercise intensity and time frames and things like that increased, and I'm still eating the same. Like I'm still eating as much as I was during recovery. I haven't buttoned off on that. Like that's, still needed to stay the same, if not increase, to account for the training that I'm doing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, my body's just like slimmed down, and like, yeah, like all of that weight that I put on during recovery. I'm not saying, I don't even know what I weigh at the moment. I don't even jump on a scale these days, but my body shape has changed for sure. And that's pretty cool, because that was a huge thing for me. Like, oh my gosh, when can I start losing all this weight and feeling better in my body again? But it kind of just happened.
It's a common conversation I have with women. And I'm so glad you're saying it, because I feel like sometimes you need to hear it from someone other than the coach, right? Because even though the trust is there, we've been conditioned to think that there's only one way to get the body. There's only one way to achieve a physique that you enjoy, or one way to get strong. And when we're warming up to a new way of doing it, there can be that resistance, and you lean in anyway, because it's like, well, I can't go back to what I was doing because that caused me to lose my period. And I don't want to stay as I am because I don't feel like myself in this body. I'm a bit heavier than I want to be. I don't feel as fit as I want to. I don't feel as strong as I want to. I need the next version of me.
Mm.
And it tends to be like, you don't believe it's true until you achieve it. And to your point, I love the way how you described it. It was like I was just doing all the things and I kind of just noticed a change, just like that. It wasn't this conscious, I must diet, I must do cardio, I must. You just went in, you're training really well, you're doing it to complement your hormones, you're eating well, and you're not tracking anything, you're just eating to suit what your body needs.
Mm.
And in turn, your body has just done what it needs to. It's because the body composition wants to happen. Like if the stimulus is there for the strength and the fuel is there, it's like a fine-tuned engine.
Mm.
It's going to change. Appetite wise, did you notice any changes to your appetite when your training changed? Because it sounds like you're kind of just going with the flow with food.
Yeah, like I just literally, yeah, I've always been like a 3 meal a day type of person, but there is now also snacks, mid-morning snack, like afternoon snack, which is also like pre-training snack. And if I'm freaking hungry, I'll eat, like I'm just,
Yeah, love it.
I don't think about food like I used to. Like I used to be so like, oh my God, like, I never would avoid a social occasion due to, my fears. But there's no doubt that I was so cautious about the way that I ate and what I was eating. Like I just didn't eat enough carbs. I think that was probably the biggest thing that I changed was just eating way more carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like it just work, it's the fuel for your training. Like if you don't have that energy from carbohydrates, you just, it's not going to go down well, and it didn't go down well. So I'd be a fool to fall back into old habits, and it's food's great. Who doesn't love food? I have
It
ice
is.
cream like every other night.
Well, it's so interesting, right? It's like there's so many myths and beliefs that you can't have the best of both things. But now you're enjoying ice cream, you're enjoying your strength training, you're enjoying how your body looks. Mentally, you feel good. Physically, you feel good. It's it's something that you might not have believed back when you're in the midst of smashing yourself with cardio. And even though I'm sure your physique is different, because you've gone from being depleted and smashing yourself to being fueled and training with intention and strategy, right? The life that comes with it is a lot more appealing. Like, would you say you feel like you again?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a different version of me, but I'm probably a far better version of me than I ever was. Um, yeah, yeah, for sure. Like there's just far less, there's far less brain consumption with thoughts about food and having to exercise all the time. Like it was just, it was quite consuming. But at the time I thought that was just normal for me. And that's what I loved doing. And I did. I don't get me wrong, I loved it. But I also now love my life now in the way that I'm a little bit more carefree and probably a bit more of a fun person to be around, and not so highly strung and feeling like I've constantly got to be on the go and doing something. I actually have a little bit of chill now.
Good. A little bit of well, because you also don't realize how highly strung you are until you're not highly strung. Like you just think you're really efficient and
Yeah.
uppity up all the time.
Yeah.
I would love to know though, is there anything you look back on and wish that you did earlier, or something that you wish you had heard about, learnt about earlier than what you did?
I think one of the biggest things for me that probably was the tipping point, because I had been trying to get my period back for probably like 2 years. I got help from you and Claudia, and it wasn't that we necessarily changed a whole lot of what I was already doing, but it was just having people to be accountable to, and having, you know, like the encouragement and the support, and that you're going in the right direction and you're doing the right things, and all of these other ladies that you could also, you know, you guys could, like, everyone was in the same boat. So it was just nice to have someone to not sympathize with, but, you know, feel like you were in the same, you had the same
In the mud.
concerns and the same struggles and
Yeah.
frustrations, and you could vent and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that that was that was something that that probably was what, you know, got me there in the end, got me across the line and stopped me just kind of half pie making changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the accountability does play a huge part because, to your point, you know, you're a physio, you're well educated, and you would have done all the research as well. And
Mhm.
between the two, it's like you know the things,
Mm,
but it's so much more than having the knowledge. And I think half the women, if you were to survey them on how to recover their cycle, they would know exactly what to do. But there's almost like an art in being able to make it happen
yeah.
versus just knowing what to do. And that's the experience you had. You went from knowing to actually being able to make it happen for you. And beyond, now you're back training. We've introduced some HIIT training as well. Your cycles are showing up as expected. It's all happy days.
Yeah. 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 No, it was it was a long journey, but we got there in the end. Probably, yeah, I think I probably could have done things could have been quicker, but I think for me it worked. I definitely wasn't one of those people that could have just like pulled pin on
All
everything.
in.
I really just like gradually pulled back on exercise and eating more, and I kind of, which made it probably a far more drawn out process than it needed to be, but I think for myself I needed it to be that way. Yeah, it just worked better for me that way, so we got there in the end.
Yeah, and congratulations, you did it.
Yeah, thank you.
And now there's more, and now you're doing pull-ups.
Yes, even better.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your whole experience. No doubt it has been inspiring and motivating to many of the listeners. Now, I am going to leave your details in the show notes if anyone wants to reach out and have a chat with you about recovery or training.
Mhm.
And if you're looking for support with the HA recovery process, please do send me an email or a DM. I'll pop them in the show notes as well. And we can get you recovered and doing pull-ups just like Rachel. But Rachel, again, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute blast, and I'm so proud of you. You've nailed it. Done
Thank
so
you
well.
very much. Thanks. It's been awesome chatting to you.